Dr. Pack here, real doctor with another fellow doctor at arguably the medical center of New York here, IAG, your house. Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, thank you for being on the channel. And I want to talk specifically about minimum effective dose training and essentially have somebody who is known for maximizing adaptation, maximizing hypertrophy, maximizing muscle growth, looking into the research and actually producing much of the research around maximizing muscle growth, and just hear from you and have people hear from an expert who's focused on the maximization side of things. How little does one need to make solid hypertrophy gains? And is that really the case even for those that are trying to get really jacked?
It's a great question, a great topic, because the vast majority of people are not looking to be bodybuilders or even to optimize their muscularity. They're looking to get some muscle, they're looking to get some strength, and they want to be healthy. And for the vast majority of people, the type of stuff that I do is just not within their purview. They don't really care about that. They just want to more moderate get, or they don't aspire to get those gains. They're looking for moderate gains. But time is of a much greater essence to them, and they're not going to want to spend the time or the effort to do what it takes to optimize results.
Mm-hmm. And how much would you say a regular person would need to do in order to make substantial gains and get pretty jacked? Obviously, it doesn't need to be the lowest amount they can do to make some solid gains, but what is a sweet spot as far as training volume goes? And just some general recommendations for somebody who wants to look visibly more jacked, not necessarily become a mass monster or absolutely maximize, or at least make a safe bet in maximizing their true potential. But what's the least they could do and still end up being pretty jacked?
Yeah, so when I'm answering a question like that, I have to speak in generalities because there's a lot of inter-individual responses that need to be taken into account. Probably a majority of people can get a majority of their gains doing single set training 3 times a week, 2-3 times a week. So anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half a week of training, they can make, when I say a majority, certainly more than 50% of their genetic potential. Now, I will also say with that there are responders and poor responders. So those who are poor responders generally do better, or they will need more volume to bring that up. Mm-hmm. So there are people that if they did that routine, they would not make substantial gains, and that's going to be only determined on an individual basis.
Yeah, I would even go as far as to argue that 10 sets per muscle group per week for the majority of people is not really that much volume to do. And you can get it done in a relatively time-efficient way if you're aware of your surroundings and you're intentional with your training.
Well, I would agree with that, but then it depends on how much time do you want to allocate. So some people only have an hour, hour and a half, or I should say they perceive they only have that. They only want to allocate that amount. And that if you tell them, when you start talking about 10 sets, they're going to be in the gym for several hours a week. I mean, that could be probably around 4 or 5 hours a week when you're talking that type of volume. And that could be problematic for some people. As you know, time is considered a primary barrier to exercise adherence. However,
the great doctors here at Lehman College recently, aka today, pre-printed a brand new study on supersets and how that affected hypertrophy. Yeah. So can supersets be a potential strategy for people to not only hit that minimum effective dose, with effective being relative to the individual and obviously some adjustment needed, but are supersets a potential game changer for people?
Yeah, game changer is a strong word, but I mean, certainly it's a strategy that can really help to save time. And as our study indicated, really all the muscular adaptation, strength, obviously hypertrophy, muscle endurance, and even power were very similar between conditions, between superset group and the traditional set group. And the superset group was almost 40% less time that it took to finish the workouts. So maybe game changers isn't even too strong a word, that it certainly can make a huge difference in the amount of time allocated, and that gives you the ability to add in more sets, particularly for those quote unquote who are poorer responders. They can get more volume in similar time.
Yeah, because we specifically looked at supersets that took about 20 seconds to go from one exercise to the other, and it was agonist, antagonist supersets, and then a couple of minutes break between each superset, which can then be tailored to the preference of each individual.
Correct.
But overall, it does seem that making really, really solid gains is not really rocket science.
No, so I've always said that if you want to just get a good physique and gain some strength, look good, feel good, get good health benefits, really minimum dose training is extremely effective. And unless you are really looking to be a bodybuilder to optimize, be one of these people who wants to optimize every morsel of muscle you can build, that's when the nuances of training become more important. So you can reach, it's always difficult to put an exact percentage on it, but let's say 3/4 of your potential or so, with fairly minimalistic routines. Now it kind of goes up quickly where you get a lot of the gains very quickly and then kind of tapers off. So you need somewhat more and more. The higher you want to go, the more in depth you need to, or the more focus you need to have on the nuances of training to really take your body to its ultimate level.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think are some of the nuances that people tend to overthink or at least perceive as, oh, I saw this brand new study by Dr. Schoenfeld's lab, or this is the new technique people that are talking about, and they tend to over-focus on relatively minute details that mostly cater to those who want to optimize.
Yeah,
and then,
I mean, virtually all the variables. So, for instance, frequency, do you need 2 days a week or 1 day a week? If there is a benefit to doing more than 1 day a week per muscle group, you do need to, I should clarify, when I say 2 days a week, that would be per muscle group. So certainly I would think a minimum of 2 days a week of training for basic gains. Probably 3 would get you somewhat better results depending on your goals there. But how many times a week should you train a muscle group? Maybe 2 would get you slightly more results, but the focus on that is, I think, way overblown. I think it's very minimal. Another one that's really, I think, overblown is rest periods. We just came out with a meta-analysis on that. Like, do you need 2 minutes, 3 minutes? And basically, the meta-analysis that we carried out showed really over 90 seconds, you're getting, there's really no differences. And even with 60 seconds, it wasn't that big a difference from 90 seconds. So again, from a minimalistic standpoint, you might sacrifice some gains, but if you're not looking to bodybuild, I don't think it's going to be appreciable enough to be meaningful for the majority of people.
Yeah, I'm I'm fully behind you on that. And it's something that intuitively made sense, especially if you're training with a high intensity of effort and you're consistent. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is there's this misconception that science constantly changes with the recommendations and the way things are supposed to be done, which I feel is a very bad straw man that is not really based on much. What do you think has really, really changed in terms of fundamentals for muscle growth in the past, let's say 15 years or so? Because you've been doing research for how many years now?
A lot of years.
A lot.
More than 15. So I think it then comes down to what your consideration is of change. So I'll give you a few. My opinion has shifted 180 degrees on repetition. So I was trained as a up-and-coming sports scientist on the concept that if you did more than 12 to 15 reps, you were basically doing glorified cardio, and that you're not going to build muscle, you're not going to activate and recruit all the highest threshold motor units, which are attached to the type 2 fibers. And over the past 15 or so years, there's now been compelling evidence. I mean, there's few things that I'm very confident in saying, but this certainly is one that you can train across a very wide spectrum of loading ranges, anywhere between, let's say, 5 to 30 plus reps, and get similar whole muscle hypertrophy. There's nothing wrong with sticking with that hypertrophy zone that the majority of bodybuilders do. But to say that doing higher reps is not going to get hypertrophy, it's been I think, undeniably refuted. And it opens up the possibility. I think one of the real important factors that comes out of this for people that have joint-related issues, older individuals in particular, where they have difficulty with osteoarthritis and other issues, that it really can be a very effective tool. Failure training, again, so depending on what your goals are, I think the vast majority of evidence now strongly suggests that most people can make gains stopping 2 to 3 reps short of failure. That you don't need to train all out. And look, I came up from that old school go all out or go home, where I was doing not only every set to failure, but I was doing forced reps and drop sets and all these extension techniques, set extension techniques. So I think my views have changed. Do I think there's still maybe for those who are really looking to optimize results, a benefit for selective use of failure? Can't rule that out.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, we can go through really all the variables, and I think that we've seen some shifts in most of them. But I don't see why that would be an issue for anyone, because that's what science is about, and that should be what everyone should want to seek the truth. And if you come across new knowledge, if your goal is to optimize results, if you're seeking if you really want to get to your optimal potential, seeking the truth is where you should be focusing. Now, you could have been training with a minimalist routine 20 years ago and not changed that at all and still gotten the results that you want. So again, where science really, I think, becomes more applicable is when we're talking about those who really want to take their body to its ultimate potential or close to that.
Yeah. I would even argue that science, if anything, has made things even more flexible. So, because people act as if every week or every month or every 6 months, there is some huge scientific update that completely changes the basics, when in reality, the basics of do enough, depending on your goal, if you want to maximize or not, enough training volume, train hard, be consistent, make sure you hit all your muscle groups or whatever, maybe some tweaks with exercise selection. And aside from that, sure, there's some room. Yeah, you may be able to eke out a bit more muscle growth if you rest a bit longer, or if you include some exercises that target, that will lead to better regional hypertrophy for some muscle groups. But nobody's not going to make extreme gains just following the most basic of principles.
Yeah, so obviously we have been involved in the lengthen partial research and bringing that to the forefront, and where I think the evidence is showing at least some promise to the fact that training at long muscle lengths provides added benefit. Again, for the average individual, I don't think that's something that really is going to make an appreciable difference. The person that just wants more, I think they should incorporate. To me, that's the type of thing that it's kind of a no-brainer to at least look at some of that, because it doesn't involve extra training or anything. But if they didn't do that, it's not like the difference between them making gains or not making gains.
Exactly.
So again, I think it really comes down to context in this type of situation.
Yeah, that's what I feel most people miss. And it's great to hear, I think for many people watching, to hear somebody who, like yourself, who is behind the scenes at the highest level, and behind the scenes of maximization at the highest level, essentially telling them, hey, the basics will get you there for the most part. Thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your service.
Man.
Hey, Real Doctors out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for many cool research projects coming out from the lab, from New York. We'll see you later. Peace.